All right, listen up, network defenders. This is a Code Ninja security advisory. Right now, your perimeters are under active critical threat from CVE 2026-34909. We are dealing with a massive escalation in the threat landscape for edge network devices. The theoretical phase for this vulnerability, it has abruptly ended. Threat actors are actively weaponizing this flaw to fuel Mirai botnet variants as we speak. If you're operating unpatched Ubiquiti UniFi infrastructure, your perimeter is literally in the crosshairs. So in this explainer, we're going to dissect the immediate tactical intelligence you need to protect your systems. Okay, let's dive right into this tactical briefing itinerary. We'll start with the zero-day hook, run a quick secure comms check, do a deep dive on the threat anatomy and blast radius, and wrap things up with mandatory mitigation and sign-off. Let's move. Phase 1, the zero-day hook. We're looking at the rapid shift from initial disclosure directly to active weaponization. To really grasp the severity of this threat, you have to look at how incredibly fast it moved from just a theory to a full-blown federal emergency. On May 21st, HackerOne stepped in as the CV numbering authority and pre-disclosed this critical flaw to the National Vulnerability Database. Now, by June 17th, we were in what I'd call a false calm. The vulnerability was known, but exploitation was recorded as none. Well, that piece definitely did not last. June 23rd was the tipping point. Active perimeter breaches began, which triggered CISA to instantly integrate the flaw into its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. And this rapid weaponization cycle, it culminated in an aggressive June 26th 72-hour deadline from CISA for mandatory federal compliance. This threat is moving so much faster than many defenders realize. Moving to Phase 2, Secure Comms Check. Time to establish our communication link. Communication link established. Defenders, as a matter of strict operational security, I need you to subscribe to @CyberTech79 right now and enable your notifications. When vulnerabilities escalate from zero-day to wild exploitation in just a matter of days, real-time intelligence is literally your only shield. Also, do me a favor and hit that like button below to serve as your formal ACK, your acknowledgement of receipt for this intel. Phase 3, the deep dive. Let's initiate the protocol to methodically deconstruct CVE 2026-34909. 10.0. That is the CVSS version 3.1 base score assigned to this vulnerability by HackerOne. Now, in the world of vulnerability management, a 10.0 critical rating is the absolute worst-case scenario. It denotes a total, devastating compromise. We're talking complete loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your host systems. So, what's the actual anatomy of this threat? It's rooted in a CWE22 flaw. That's your classic path traversal vulnerability, but it is embedded deep within the UniFi OS. Because the system improperly limits path names to restricted directories, malicious network actors can basically reach right across the file system. They can access, read, and even manipulate restricted underlying system files. And because this requires absolutely zero authentication, it paves a direct, totally unobstructed path to completely hijack the device's underlying accounts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the catastrophic shift in CISA's Stakeholder-Specific Vulnerability Categorization, the SSVC metrics. On June 23rd, CISA ADP fundamentally altered the record. They shifted the exploitation status from none straight to active. When you pair this active status with the vector string you see here, specifically AVN for network attack vector, and PRN, meaning literally zero privileges required, it completely confirms that Mirai botnet expansion is happening out in the wild, at scale, and completely autonomously. Let's look at the hardware blast radius. We need to identify exactly which common platform enumeration configurations are vulnerable. I need you to cross-reference your infrastructure with these thresholds immediately. If you are running UniFi OS servers on firmware prior to 5.0.8, you are vulnerable. UniFi Express units before 4.014, exposed. The incredibly popular Dream Machine, or UDM series, and that includes the Pro, the SE, and the Pro Max, they are all critically vulnerable if they're running anything before version 5.1.12. The UDM Beast falls if it's before 5.111, and the entire network-attached storage line, the UNAS series, is completely exposed before firmware 5.1.10. And this brilliantly illustrates the true massive scope of a path traversal flaw on a unified operating system. The vulnerability doesn't just stop at your routers. Your video surveillance systems, the UNVR, UNVR Pro, and ENVR Core series, they're equally exposed if they're sitting on firmware before 5.1.12. The exact same goes for your UCK crowd keys, your cloud gateways, and even those enterprise fortress gateways. If the device is running a vulnerable version of UniFi OS, it is actively being targeted for botnet recruitment right now. So the crucial point is mandatory mitigation protocols. Let's talk about securing the perimeter. 72 hours. That is the aggressively tight window CISA mandated for compliance following the addition to the KEV catalog. A 72-hour turnaround time from federal alert to mandatory compliance, that highlights the severe, ongoing damage this flaw was causing in real time. The June 26 deadline has already hit, guys, which means any unpatched systems remaining online right now are actively bleeding. Under CISA's Binding Operational Directive, or BOD 26-04, your response is strictly defined. Step 1. You must comprehensively evaluate the internet exposure of every single edge asset. Step 2. Apply the vendor mitigations immediately. You need to push your devices to the safe thresholds outlined by NIST, specifically versions 5.1.12, 5.1.10, or 5.0.8, depending on the hardware. And step 3. If you cannot patch, or if a device has been sitting out there on the public internet unpatched, you have to assume breach. Initiate CISA's forensic triage requirements to hunt for Mirai artifacts, or permanently discontinue the use of the product and rip it off your network.
Phase 4, the ethics and sign-off, moving into coordinated vulnerability disclosure.
We practice coordinated vulnerability disclosure for one very specific reason: to force fixes and protect global infrastructure. When a 10.0 critical flaw shifts from a theoretical problem to active, wild exploitation, holding back intelligence only benefits the threat actors. Users absolutely need to know exactly what is hitting their perimeters so they can protect their systems. The theoretical grace period is over. So I leave you with this final, critical assessment. Have you assumed breach and forensically verified your firmware thresholds across your entire Ubiquiti footprint? Or are your edge devices, right at this very moment, actively feeding a Mirai botnet? The intel is in your hands, defenders. Execute your mitigations, lock down your perimeters, and as always, stay secure.